Good morning, students. Welcome to my tutorial. So today we are going to discuss about something that is important in biomechanics, which is the hip joint complex or the hip complex. So when I tell you the hip complex, something that comes into your mind is, oh, it's a big chapter, and when you read the Cynthia Sinorkin, you find a lot of pages and a lot of calculation. So you make me worried about what hip complex is, and it's going to be tough. But I can assure you that it is one of the most simplest chapter in biomechanics, provided you understand the real concept in this chapter. So that is biomechanics. The chapter may be 10 pages or 20 pages with a lot of calculations, but once you understand the key points in biomechanics, it's going to be such easy. You can make the 10 pages or 20 pages, that is the biomechanics. You should understand the nutshell, you should understand the key concept. And we will do it in such a manner that you are able to understand and get the key concept very easily into your mind. So let's move to the hip complex. And when I again tell you about the hip complex, you can equate it. It is like the shoulder complex. You can tell it. It is like the shoulder complex. But something that I want to tell you is, what is the function of this shoulder complex? What is the function? The shoulder complex acts as a fulcrum, or act as a base point from where all the movements of upper limb is being considered. It actually helps in functional grasping, holding, touching your face, and taking a mirror and looking how handsome you are, and all those stuffs. That is a function of the shoulder complex. It acts as a fulcrum for the movements. But the hip complex, it doesn't act as a fulcrum for the movements. It of course acts, but it has a major role. It has some other major role. Can you imagine that? We can tell it in a beautiful word, or we can equate it in a beautiful word, a handsome phrase, the function of the hip complex. Can you imagine that? Can you? Yes, and that single function of the hip complex is known as weight bearing function. Weight bearing function. Yes, that is the starting. The hip complex had to provide the weight-bearing function for human beings. You can imagine the whole weight of your body is transmitted through your hip. And there is another term, of course, known as HAT. It's not hat that you wear, but it is something else. It's an abbreviation, stands for head, arm, and trunk. Head, arm, and trunk. The weight of head, the weight of arm, the weight of trunk is transmitted through your hip joint. So that is your upper part complete. The head, the arms, the trunk up to the hip. So the complete weight of the head is transmitted through both of your hip joints. And sometimes when you stand in single leg, it is of course transmitted by one of your hip joint. So that is the function of the hip joint. It serves to provide the weight bearing function, and it either helps in the transmission of the weight of head, arm, and trunk. Okay. Now, what type of joint is the hip complex? As it is equivalent to the shoulder, or it is considerably similar to the shoulder, it is a ball and socket of joint. Ball and socket type of joint. The first important thing to know is it's a ball and socket type of joint. I have clearly explained biomechanics earlier. If it is a ball and socket type of joint, definitely it will have 3 degrees of freedom. 3 degrees of freedom. 3 degrees of freedom. Okay? And that 3 degrees of freedom are flexion bar extension, abduction bar adduction, internal rotation bar external rotation. So these are the 3 degrees of freedom, or the movement that are possible in the hip joint. This is the flexion, and this is its extension. This is abduction, this is adduction, this is external rotation, this is internal rotation. All these 3 movements are possible in the hip joint because it is a ball and socket type of synovial joint, and it has 3 degrees of freedom. Clear? So let us summarize what are the introduction. So hip joint is a joint in the lower limb primarily serving the function of weight bearing, especially transmitting the weight of head, arm and trunk. And it is what type of joint? It is a ball and socket type of synovial joint. How many degrees of freedom? This, it has 3 degrees of freedom. What are that? It is flexion extension, it is abduction adduction, it is internal rotation, external rotation. Clear? So that's all about the introduction. Now we will see about the hip joint in detail. It's a bit tough to rub. That doesn't matter. Whatever it is, we will move on to the hip joint in detail. So, when we are discussing any joint, we should know the proximal articulating surface and the distal articulating surface. So, the idea of joint comes from a proximal articulating surface and distal articulating surface. What is the proximal articulating surface in hip complex? Anybody can imagine, anybody can guess it. This is the pelvic bone, and this pelvic bone's one unique part forms the proximal articulating surface. You can call your pelvic bone like this, and when you place it, this is the right side pelvic bone, and this pelvic bone's unique structure known as the acetabulum forms the proximal articulating surface. So the first thing is acetabulum of pelvic bone forms the proximal articulating surface. But is that enough? You are medical students and you don't have to answer like LKG students. Pelvic bone acetabulum. No. Acetabulum is located in the lateral part of pelvic bone. Acetabulum located in the lateral part of the pelvic bone. When you call it like this, it is seen laterally. Acetabulum located in the lateral part of the pelvic bone forms the proximal articulating surface. We need to go again in depth. What more? The acetabulum is having a particular shaped structure. This one, this inside structure, this inside shape, this part that is known as the lunate surface. The lunate surface of acetabulum forms the proximal articulating surface. What shape is this acetabulum? This acetabulum is a cup-shaped structure, right? You can imagine this is like a cup-shaped structure. This is like a cup-shaped structure, concave structure. So the cup-shaped acetabulum, the lateral part of the pelvic bone, and it is having a lunate surface. So we are developing our knowledge in acetabulum, the proximal articulating surface more clearly, the lunate surface. So when you write in the examination, you have to write the proximal articulating surface is formed by the acetabulum, which is located in the lateral part of the pelvic bone, and acetabulum contains a unique structure or part known as the lunate surface. Unique surface known as lunate surface, which is exactly the articulating point. Now you have to write about acetabulum. It is cup-shaped structure. It is nearly circular. It is a cup-shaped structure. Additional points you have to write down. When you look at acetabulum, there is an inside cavity. That cavity is known as the acetabular fossa. Acetabular fossa, the inside part. That is known as the acetabular fossa. You have to write about the acetabular fossa. Then you have a unique structure here. This one, this space, that is known as the acetabular notch. You have to write about the acetabular notch. Acetabular notch. What do you want to write about the acetabular fossa? The acetabular fossa is the innermost part of the acetabulum, and the function is it do not take part in the articulation. So acetabular fossa do not take part in the articulation. Now you have to write about the acetabular notch. What about the acetabular notch? The acetabular notch is a gap in the lower part of the acetabulum. The acetabular notch is a gap in the lower part of the acetabulum. Exactly correct. It's the lower part of the acetabulum. There is a notch. There is a gap. That gap is known as the acetabular notch. And the peculiarity is this acetabular notch is covered by a ligament like this, transverse acetabular ligament. Nothing to worry. It is transverse, so you call it transverse acetabular ligament. It is covered by a ligament known as transverse acetabular ligament. acetabular ligament. Clear? So, see that it is covered by transverse acetabular ligament. Okay? Now, let us summarize what we have learned about the acetabulum. The proximal articulating surface is formed by the acetabulum of the pelvic bone, which is seen lateral to the pelvic bone. It is cup-shaped in structure. It has a lunate surface which forms the articulating surface. It is nearly circular in shape. It has an innermost area known as the acetabular fossa. The unique peculiarity is it does not take place in the articulation. And about the acetabular notch, there is a gap in the inferior part of the acetabulum that is known as the acetabular notch, and that gap is filled by a ligament known as transverse acetabular ligament. You can tell acetabulum is cup-shaped or it is horseshoe-shaped, H-O-R-S-E, okay, horseshoe-shaped structure. You can tell it like this. So we have to build up our knowledge. It is horseshoe-shaped structure. This acetabulum is a horseshoe-shaped structure. Clear? That's all about the acetabulum in brief. Now, if you place the acetabulum in the anatomical position, you can see that the acetabulum is placed like this in the anatomical position. This is inferiorly tilted. This is having an inferior tilt by 50 degree, and it is not posteriorly tilted, it is anteriorly tilted. This is how it is placed by 20 degree. So there is an inferior tilt of 50 degree and an anterior tilt of 50 degree, inferior tilt, anterior tilt of 20 degree. This you have to memorize, it is important. So when you place the acetabulum like this, it is not like this, posterior tilted, it is anterior tilted. But the acetabulum is anteriorly tilted. Okay, this is anterior tilted and it is having an inferior tilt in this plane. So it is having an inferior tilt and an anterior tilt. Inferior tilt of 50 degree and an anterior tilt of 20 degree. So these are the things that you have to remember about the proximal articular surface. Clear? Should we summarize it again? I don't think so. Okay, let us move to the distal articular surface. What is the distal articular surface? The distal articular surface is formed by the femur. Oh, no, not about the femur. The distal articular surface is formed by the head of femur. Yes, that's it. It is formed by head of femur. Very good. Now you have to see the shape of this head of the femur. The head of this femur is spherical in shape. Absolutely right. Anybody can imagine that it is spherical in shape. The next point is it is spherical in shape. Very good. What again? Let us build our knowledge in it. How to build it? It is spherical in shape, but it forms, is it a complete sphere? No. It forms 2/3 of the sphere. 2/3 of sphere. Earlier we have discussed about the shoulder complex. Shoulder complex, you have the humerus, which is also head is spherical in shape, but it only forms 1/3 of the sphere. Here it forms a 2/3 of the sphere. Okay, that's important thing. 2/3 of the sphere. What again? You have to write. You are writing an examination, so you have to write more points. Imagine what peculiarity it is having. Head connects to the neck. Head connects the shaft through the neck. Yes, head connects through the shaft to the neck, and then you have the greater trochanter and the shaft. So head connects to shaft through the neck. Very good. Head connects through the shaft to the neck. What again? Just imagine, tilt this one. You see a structure here which is in the medial part, just inferior to, this is the medial point. Okay, just inferior to the medial point you have a depression. That depression is known as fovea. That depression is known as fovea. That is known as the fovea. Okay, a pit is known as a fovea or fovea capitis. Fovea or fovea capitis. Ligamentum teres. Ligamentum teres is attached there. Is attached there. If you find it difficult to remember This ligament doesn't matter. We will study it in detail when you discuss the ligaments. Okay. So let us summarize what we learned about the distal articular surface. It is formed by the head of the femur. It is spherical in shape. It forms 2/3 of the spear. It connects shaft through the neck, and fovea is the depression seen in the just inferior to the medial point, and it is a site of attachment of the ligamentum teres, and it is a site of attachment of a ligamentum teres. So these are the important points that you have to study about the head of the femur. And you see, you place the head of the femur like this. This is having an orientation. This is medially oriented. Of course, it's not laterally oriented, it is medially oriented. Okay, and it is not inferior oriented, it is superiorly oriented. It is not posterior oriented, it is anteriorly oriented. So, what is it? The head of the femur is, the head of, where will I write? Let me write it here. The head of the femur is superior, medial, and anterior. Okay, the head of the femur is oriented, it's not working. The head of the femur is oriented superiorly, medially, and anteriorly. So that's important points that you have to study about the distal articulating surface. Can we just summarize this? So the hip complex or the hip joint is made up of proximal and distal articulating surface. Proximal articulating surface is the acetabulum, and we studied all those stuffs of the acetabulum. Something that is important is the tilt, inferior tilt of 50 and anterior tilt of 20 degree. And then we move on to the distal articulating surface. It is formed by the head of the femur. The head of the femur is spherical in shape. It forms 2/3 of the spear, and it connects to the shaft through the neck. And it has a depression known as fovea or fovea capitis, and it is attachment site of ligamentum teres. Clear? And its orientation of the head of the femur, it is medially oriented, it is superiorly oriented, and it is anteriorly oriented. That's all about the distal and proximal articular surface in a nutshell. Nutshell. Okay. So let me rub it up. Yes, that's it. The hip complex. Let us just summarize what we have learned. So we saw that the hip joint is a ball and socket type of joint, and the ball and socket type of joint is made up of acetabulum and the head of the femur. Since it's a ball and socket type of joint, it has 3 degrees of freedom. The 3 degrees are flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, internal rotation and external rotation. Okay. Then we saw about the proximal and distal articular surface in detail, and we saw the peculiarity of the proximal and the distal articular surface. Now we have a concept known as acetabular labrum. Acetabular labrum. You have to study about that. When you studied the glenohumeral joint, you had a labrum known as glenoid labrum. Similarly, you have an acetabular labrum. So this is the acetabulum. Okay, this acetabulum's periphery. This is the periphery. This peripheral line. There is a structure that is attached to the periphery. That structure is known as the acetabular labrum. The first point, it is attached to the periphery. It is a periphery. What it is it a muscle? No, everybody knows that labrum is a fibrocartilaginous structure. Fibrocartilaginous structure. So labrum is a fibrocartilaginous structure attached to the periphery. So this is the periphery, and you have this acetabular labrum. Okay, clear? This is attached to the periphery with the help of a fibrocartilage, with the help of a cartilage. Okay, that is not an important point. You don't need to worry about that. Okay, so the first point is periphery. It is attached to, and it is a fibrocartilaginous structure. What is the function? Why do we have a labrum? We already have an acetabulum. Why do we need a labrum? See, imagine this. This is the acetabulum, and the labrum is like my fingers. Okay, like I can show you like this. See, this is how the labrum it is. So what does it do? It increases the concavity. Of acetabulum. Acetabulum's concavity, if it is increased, it increases the stability, right? Because the head of the femur can sit in more easily, more inside the cavity, the head of the femur can go. So it can increases the stability of the acetabulum or the head of the femur or the hip joint in return. Second one, it acts as a negative, it provides a negative intra-articular pressure. Negative intra-articular pressure. See, you have the capsule, you have the labrum. This labrum helps in maintaining a negative pressure inside the capsule. So what this negative head pressure do is that this negative pressure will hold the head like this. It will not allow the distraction. This is like a vacuum, what do you call, vacuum holding things. You vacuum stickers, you stick it like this. It's vacuum. It cannot come back. So similar to that, the labrum provides a negative intra-articular pressure inside the hip joint. Clear? And third function is the labrum has lot of free nerve endings. Labrum contains lot of free nerve endings. It's a delicate structure, so it has lot of free nerve endings over here. And this free nerve endings helps in the proprioception. This free nerve endings help in the proprioception function. What is proprioception? You know, the joint position sense. Where the hip joint is placed. Is it flexion? Is it extension? Is it abduction? Is it interrotation? Whatever the stuff it, you can even guess without opening your eyes and looking at. This is possible because of the many receptors. One is that joint proprioceptors. So the free nerve endings has a proprioceptive function. So it helps in proprioception. So acetabular labrum helps in increasing the concavity and stability. It provides a negative intra-articular pressure. It has lot of free nerve endings which provides a proprioceptive function. So these are three unique functions of the acetabular labrum. When you draw the labrum, you have to draw it like this. You have the hip joint like this. Sorry, ilium like this, and you have the acetabulum. And where is my red? Yes, here it is. You have to draw the labrum like this. It is attached to the periphery. This is like this. This is the labrum. Okay, it's not much visible. Still, you can guess it. This is the labrum. Okay, this is like this. It is attached to. This is the labrum, which increases the concavity, which provides a negative